it's Renee with Reset with Renee. I'm back again, but this time the topic is about inner critics. So every person that I've worked with, and really that I know, I think every human has inside of them a part of them or a voice or inner self-talk that makes their inner world feel really conflicted. So, if a client comes to me and they say, I feel like I'm not good enough, or I'm too much, or I'm trying to make a change, a behavior change, and I just can't seem to do it, help me out. Often what I do is first listen for how they are critical towards themselves. And so I really believe everybody has an inner critic. The folks I work with CPTSD, their critics tend to be like on steroids. They're more frequent, they're more intense. I know back in the day when I was working with a previous therapist, he told me, he's like, Renee, he's like, it's abusive up in there. And I was like, what are you talking about? But he was right. I mean, my critic was pretty harsh. And so when you come from an environment where your mechanism for safety is to keep you safe and small and doing the right thing and not getting in trouble, over time that gets internalized into a critic. So again, I think all people have some sort of self-talk that shows up as an inner critic. Just some folks have harsher critics than others. So I am going to read from a book I have. I've had it forever. It's called Self-Therapy for Your Inner Critic. And this book in chapter 2 talks about seven different flavors or types of the critic. And there's more than 7, but I think this is a great starting point. So if you've been feeling conflicted lately, or you've been feeling like too much or not enough, please listen and see if any of these 7 land or resonate with your system. Okay, so the first one is the perfectionist. The perfectionist tries to get you to do everything perfectly. They have, this part of you has very high standards for behavior, performance, and production. And when you don't meet these standards, the perfectionist, the voice of the perfectionist attacks you by saying that your work or behavior isn't good enough. And this can make it hard to start projects, to finish projects, or to feel like you ever hit the mark. So a lot of my clients have a perfectionistic part of them. In fact, I call the 4 Ps: perfectionistic, performing, producing, and pleasing. So perfectionist is right up in there. The second one is called the inner controller. And the inner controller is a part of you or messaging inside of you that tries to control your impulsive behavior, such as like overeating, using substances, getting angry, basically doing anything that's going to kind of get you in trouble, right? Not meet your goals or make somebody unhappy. And so this inner controller part will shame you each time you binge or use or overreact. So it's usually, this inner controller is in a constant battle with another part of you that is more impulsive. So like I said, when you feel conflicted or torn or like you just can't quite land, it's usually because there are multiple parts inside of you who are kind of duking it out. They're having a literal tug of war inside of you for control. So then the next is the Taskmaster. I think about like Enneagram 1s and 3s may have a very strong Taskmaster. A lot of my clients are high achieving, high performing, and they have a very active Taskmaster. So listen, the Taskmaster tries to get you to work hard in order to be successful. It'll attack you and tell you that you're lazy, stupid, or incompetent, or not enough, in an attempt to motivate you. It often gets into a battle with another part of you that procrastinates as a way of avoiding work. So that's a common conflict that people I talk to have. On one hand, they want to produce, achieve, accomplish their to-dos, and on the other hand, they're avoiding it. And then they're feeling bad that they're avoiding it, and that's just like a repeating loop. The next inner critic that we have in this chapter is the Underminer. The Underminer tries to undermine your self-confidence and self-esteem so that you won't take risk that might end in failure. It'll tell you, if you listen inside, that you're worthless and inadequate and that you'll never amount to anything. It may also try to prevent you from getting too big, powerful, or visible in order to avoid the threat of attack or rejection. So the Underminer is really, in kind of a hurtful way, trying to keep you safe. And I see that a lot in the people that I work with. The next is the Destroyer. The Destroyer has a little bit darker energy to it. So the Destroyer makes pervasive attacks on your fundamental self-worth. It is deeply shaming and tells you that you shouldn't even exist. It can be experienced as a crushing force that wipes out your vitality, or a pervasive negative energy that stamps out any sign of creativity, spontaneity, or desire. There's a lot I could say about the Destroyer energy. Oftentimes, inner critic parts really show up in our self-talk. So if you listen to what you say to yourself, or if you journal and you find yourself journaling the same phrases over and over again, that can be kind of a trailhead to get to know your parts, especially your inner critics. But sometimes you don't experience the critic as languaging. You experience it more of a felt sense. Maybe emotion, a body part might get activated, or you just might have a weird sort of frequency, energetic frequency feeling. And with the Destroyer, it can be particularly dark or heavy, negative. Okay, the guilt tripper. I tripped over that word. Yeah, a lot of my clients struggle with guilt. So listen to this. The guilt tripper attacks you for a specific action you took or you didn't take, equal opportunity there, in the past that was harmful to someone, especially someone you care about. This critic might also attack you for violating a deeply held value. It constantly makes you feel bad, and it will never forgive you. It might also make you feel guilty for repeated behaviors that it considers unacceptable in an attempt to get you to stop. Okay, the next is the molder. The molder tries to get you to fit a certain social mold or act in a certain way that is based on your family or cultural norms or mores. This can be any kind of mold, for example. It could be caring about people. It could be aggressive, assertive, outgoing, intellectual, or polite. This critic attacks you when you don't fit and praises you when you do. So I really think about gender roles here. You know, so many women are socialized and conditioned by their family of origin, by their culture, by greater society, by the collective, if you will, to be a certain way. I mean, just saw Barbie last weekend, and that monologue that's within that movie. It's like, women are unable to meet all these conflicting double standards that we get everywhere. So, and I think the same is true for men. There's so many standards that men are supposed to try to achieve, right? Or be or not be. And when you step outside of the proverbial box, you can get some backlash from people who would rather see you be where they want you to be because they're uncomfortable if you're not normal. Okay, so really leaning into your authenticity is really a brave and courageous thing to do for a lot of people. All right. And I think that was the last one. Hopefully we covered all 7 and I didn't skip any. So here's the invitation for you, in the next week or so, when you notice activation inside of you, if you notice you feel conflicted or confused, if you notice you're having a hard time making a decision or making a change, listen inside for language that might resonate with one of those flavors of inner critics and see what it's connected to. Inner critics are protective parts of us. And they use strategies to get their job done. They have impulses, they have beliefs, and when you kind of connect with them, there's usually a story, a memory, or more than one memory, or more than one story about why they protect you in the way that they do. So one of the questions that I ask clients, and when I do my own inner work, when I notice a critic, or any part really, is like, what are you afraid would happen if you didn't do this anymore? To the part, what would happen to this perfectionist part if you didn't do this anymore? What would happen to me? What would happen to the person? And see what comes up. And that is usually the way that they're trying to protect you. So when you get clarity on that, on why they're protecting you and how they're protecting you, then you can come in with some what we call self-energy. And that's straight out of IFS, the 8 C words. There's P words, I think there's I words too, but the basics would be the 8 C words. And bring some compassion, bring some curiosity, bring some courage. Conviction isn't in there, but people I work with, we've added conviction. So there's some frequencies you can tap into to bring some leadership to your system when it's feeling wobbly, when it's feeling confused, when you're not sure what to do next, and these critic parts are trying to manage. We don't want them to manage. We want them to be players on the team that are helping us in balance and harmony, but not taking us over and then giving us messages that were too much or not enough or worse. So I hope that was helpful. If you take anything from this video, it's that if you're human and have a pulse, you probably have an inner critic. Pretty normal. If yours is more active or more intense, like with that destroyer energy, no shame or blame. It's just probably a signal you've had a lot of shame handed towards you over your lifetime. And so that part and you deserve some healing. So if you're interested about helping your inner critics or any other part of you for your personal growth and healing, I hope you will reach out to Reset. Thanks for listening.